The mockery of ages. The Galactic Parliament chamber hummed with alien laughter. Thousands of representatives from hundreds of star systems filled the crystalline dome that floated in the neutral zone between the Andromeda and Milky Way territories. Today's session had devolved, as it often did, into another round of ridiculing humanity. Supreme Chancellor Vexala of the Zephyrian Empire stood at the central podium, her translucent wings catching the light from nearby stars. Her voice carried across the chamber with the authority of someone whose species controlled a third of known space. Once again, the humans request trade agreements for their obsolete fusion reactors, she announced, holding up a datapad as if it were contaminated. They still haven't mastered antimatter conversion, can you imagine? A spacefaring species that still burns hydrogen like our ancestors did 50,000 years ago. The chamber erupted in various forms of amusement. The crystalline collective chimed like breaking glass. The void swimmers created bubbles of darkness that popped with silent mirth, and the neural web broadcast waves of condescending pity directly into everyone's minds. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood in the designated platform for Earth's representative. She was one of the few humans allowed to attend these sessions, a position that felt more like being displayed in a zoo than diplomatic service. Her dark hair was pulled back in a severe bun, and her brown eyes remained steady despite the mockery surrounding her. She had endured this for 5 years now, but today felt different. Today she had received a message from Earth Command that simply said, "The time of patience ends." Distinguished members of the Parliament, Sarah spoke into her translator, her voice cutting through the laughter. Earth acknowledges its current technological limitations. We merely seek fair trade to improve our situation. Fair trade? The Arthaxian delegate, a creature that looked like a living storm cloud with lightning for eyes, crackled with energy. What could humans possibly offer us? Your ships take months to travel between stars while ours fold space in seconds. Your weapons couldn't penetrate the hull of our cargo vessels. Your medical technology can barely extend your lives past a single century. Sarah's jaw tightened, but she maintained her composure. We offer cultural exchanges, art, music, literature, primitive scratches on dead trees and vibrations in atmosphere, interrupted Zix, the mechanical intelligence that governed 17 systems. We have evolved beyond such crude expressions. Even your digital networks are laughably simple. You still use binary code like infants learning to count. The mocking had been constant for 1,000 years, ever since humanity's first contact with the galactic community. Sarah knew the history well. Every human child learned it in school. In the year 2157, humans had finally achieved faster-than-light travel, only to discover the galaxy was already populated by species that had been traveling the stars for millennia. The initial contact had been peaceful, even promising. But then, the other species had seen Earth's technology, understood humanity's nature, and something had changed. Within a decade, Earth had been effectively isolated, not through war or blockade, but through calculated economic and political marginalization. The advanced species refused to share their technology, claiming humans were not ready and needed to develop naturally. Trade agreements were limited to resources the aliens considered worthless. Human colonies were restricted to systems no one else wanted. It was a soft prison built from bureaucracy and condescension. Perhaps, Vexala said, her compound eyes glittering with malice, it is time we stop pretending humanity will ever be more than what they are. Violent primitives who barely managed to leave their dying world before destroying it. The galaxy has carried them long enough. Sarah felt her hands clench behind her back. Earth wasn't dying. That was another lie the aliens loved to spread. Yes, humans had faced climate challenges, wars, and disasters, but they had overcome them all. The planet was healing, thriving even. But the galaxy only saw what it wanted to see. "What are you proposing, Supreme Chancellor?" Sarah asked, though she suspected she already knew. Vex, quote, a la, quote, S-wings spread wide, a gesture of dominance among her species. The Zephyrian Empire formally moves to revoke Earth's provisional membership in the Galactic Parliament. Humanity will be reclassified as a protected primitive species. Your colonies will be relocated to a single system where you can develop without bothering the rest of civilized space. The chamber fell silent. Even for all their mockery, this was extreme. It was essentially a death sentence for humanity's future, trapped in one system, cut off from resources, doomed to stagnation and eventual extinction. "You cannot do this," Sarah said, her voice steady despite the rage building inside her. "We are sentient beings. We have rights under galactic law." "Rights earned through contribution," Vexala countered. "And in 1,000 years, what has humanity contributed? Your presence is tolerated out of pity, nothing more." Sarah touched the communication device hidden in her ear. The response from Earth was immediate. "Protocol 7 authorized. Reveal nothing. Return immediately." Protocol 7. Sarah had never thought she'd hear those words. It was Earth's most closely guarded secret, something even most humans didn't know existed. "Earth formally protests this motion," Sarah said. "We request a standard cycle to prepare. Our response." "Denied," Vexala said. "The vote will occur in 7 rotations. I suggest you use that time to begin evacuating your colonies." As Sarah left the chamber, she heard the whispers following her. Poor humans. Pathetic humans. Weak, primitive, obsolete humans. They had no idea what they had just done. On her private shuttle heading back to Earth, Sarah finally allowed herself to access the classified files her clearance now permitted. What she read made her sink into her chair, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what was about to happen. The files dated back to humanity's first contact. The real first contact, not the one in the history books. It seemed humans had encountered something in deep space before meeting the galactic community, an ancient archive left by a long-dead civilization. The archive contained a warning, written in 1,000 languages, most of which no longer existed. But the message was clear. Beware the younger races, for they carry the flame that consumes empires. The archive had also contained something else. Blueprints, theories, and technologies that the current galactic powers had either forgotten or deliberately suppressed. Technologies that worked on principles the advanced species considered impossible or too dangerous to pursue. For 1,000 years, Earth had played the fool. They had accepted the mockery, the isolation, the humiliation, all while secretly building, learning, and preparing. Every insult had been catalogued, every laugh remembered, every moment of condescension filed away. The aliens had made one crucial mistake in their arrogance. They assumed human nature was weak because humans chose not to display their strength. They mistook patience for inability. They confused strategic silence with ignorance. Sarah looked at the final entry in the file. It was a message from Earth's Shadow Council, the true government that had operated in secret for centuries. "The masquerade ends now. Let them remember why the ancients feared the flame bearers." 3 days later, Ambassador Sarah Chen stood before Earth's public for the last time in her role as a diplomat. Behind her, the blue marble of humanity's home spun peacefully. The speech was being broadcast to every human colony, ship, and outpost in the galaxy. "My fellow humans," she began, her voice carrying the weight of 1,000 years of endurance. "Today, the Galactic Parliament has decided we are unworthy of membership. They wish to cage us, to condemn us to a slow extinction, while they laugh at our struggle." She paused, looking directly into the camera. "They have forgotten something important. They have forgotten that we are the children of a world that tried to kill us every day and we survived. They have forgotten that we are the species that split the atom before we cured the common cold. They have forgotten that we walked on our moon using computers less powerful than what our children now play with." Sarah's expression hardened. "But most importantly, they have forgotten why their ancestors feared us. Why they really isolated us. Not because we were weak, but because they recognized something in us that terrified them. The willingness to do what must be done, no matter the cost." She held up a small device no bigger than her palm. "This is a quantum beacon. In 30 seconds it will activate and send a signal to every human ship, station, and colony in the galaxy. That signal will end the masquerade we have maintained for a millennium." The device began to glow. "To our mockers in the Parliament, I have one message. You were right about one thing. We are not like you. We are something far more dangerous. We are humanity, and we are done pretending to be weak. The beacon flashed, and across the galaxy things began to change. The awakening of Terra Supreme Chancellor. Vexala stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Celestial Supremacy, as her invasion fleet approached Earth. 10,000 ships, the pride of the Zephyrian Empire, moved in perfect formation through the void. It was meant to be a show of force, a final demonstration to humanity and the galaxy that the Zephyrians were not to be defied. Sensors detect human defensive fleet, her tactical officer reported. Approximately 300 vessels, Supreme, Chancellor. Vexala's mandibles clicked in amusement. 300 ships against 10,000. Even for humans, this was pathetic. What class of vessels? Unknown, Supreme Chancellor. They appear to be different from standard human ships. Energy signatures are unusual. No matter. Vexala dismissed. Begin the broadcast. Let the galaxy witness the final humiliation of humanity. The live feed went out to every corner of civilized space. Billions of beings across hundreds of worlds tuned in to watch Earth's last stand. The betting pools on how many seconds humanity would last had become the galaxy's most popular entertainment. Admiral Marcus Rodriguez stood on the bridge of humanity's flagship, the Phoenix Rising. Around him, his crew worked with an efficiency that would have surprised any alien observer. There were no verbal commands, no confusion, no wasted movement. Every human in the fleet moved as if they were part of a single organism. Admiral, his tactical officer, Commander Lisa Park, said without looking up from her neural interface. The Zephyrians are broadcasting. Should we respond? Marcus smiled, a cold expression that didn't reach his eyes. Let them talk. Begin revelation. Protocol. Across Earth's defensive fleet, hull plates began to retract. What emerged from beneath made several alien observers across the galaxy drop whatever they were holding. The human ships weren't made of metal. They were grown from something that looked organic, but behaved like nothing in nature. The hulls rippled with patterns that hurt to look at directly, as if they existed in more dimensions than the standard 4. Weapons ports opened like eyes, revealing not cannons or missiles but geometric shapes that seemed to fold in on themselves infinitely. On the Celestial Supremacy, alarms began screaming. Supreme Chancellor! The science officer's voice cracked with panic. The human ships, they're generating gravitational fields that shouldn't be possible. They're bending space-time around themselves. Impossible, Vexala snapped. Gravity manipulation requires... They're not manipulating gravity, Supreme Chancellor. They're creating it, from nothing. It violates everything we know about physics. Before Vexala could respond, the human fleet moved. But moved wasn't the right word. They flickered, existing in one place and then another without crossing the space between. It wasn't the space-folding technology the advanced species used. This was something else entirely. Admiral Rodriguez opened a channel to the Zephyrian fleet. His image appeared on every screen, every display, every neural interface in the invasion force. Behind him, his crew continued their work. But something was wrong with the picture. They were moving too perfectly, breathing in unison, blinking at the exact same moment. Supreme Chancellor Vexala, Rodriguez said, his voice carrying an undertone that made even hardened warriors shudder. I am Admiral Marcus Rodriguez of the Terran Revenant Fleet. You came here expecting to fight the humanity you thought you knew. Allow me to introduce you to what we really are. He gestured to his crew. You mocked us for our individual nature, our chaotic minds, our emotional decisions. So we evolved. Every human in this fleet is connected through quantum entanglement at the neural level. We are individuals, but we are also one. We think as one, react as one, fight as one. We call it the convergence, and it makes us something your species can't comprehend. Abomination, Vexala hissed. You've destroyed your own humanity. No, Rodriguez replied. We've transcended it. But that's just the beginning. You see, that ancient archive we found didn't just warn about us. It was left by a species that tried to become what we now are. They failed because they weren't human. They didn't have our particular gift. What gift? Vexala demanded, though fear was creeping into her voice. The ability to hold contradictions in our minds without breaking, to be individuals and collective, simultaneously, to use logic and emotion as weapons, to create and destroy with equal passion. Rodriguez's smile widened. But most importantly, the ability to remember every slight, every insult, every moment of pain you've inflicted on us for 1,000 years, and to use that pain as fuel. The human ships began to shift, their forms becoming even more impossible. They weren't just bending space, they were unmaking it and remaking it according to their will. Zephyrian sensors screamed contradictions. The ships were there and not there, massive and microscopic, ancient and newly born. Fire everything, Vexala screamed. Destroy them all. The Zephyrian fleet unleashed its full might. Antimatter beams, singularity bombs, quantum torpedoes, weapons that could crack planets and extinguish stars. The space around Earth became a storm of destructive energy that should have vaporized anything in its path. The human ships didn't dodge. They didn't block. They simply existed in a state where the weapons couldn't touch them. The destructive energy passed through them like they were ghosts, or perhaps like the weapons were ghosts and only the human ships were real. Then humanity struck back. Weapons that didn't have names because the concepts behind them didn't exist in galactic science. Beams that deleted portions of reality. Missiles that traveled backwards through time to hit their targets before they were fired. Fields that turned energy into entropy, causing Zephyrian ships to age 1,000,000 years in seconds. But the most terrifying weapon wasn't technological. It was psychological. Every Zephyrian in the fleet suddenly felt it. A presence in their minds. Not invasive, not controlling, just there, watching, remembering. It was the collective consciousness of humanity, bearing witness to this moment. And in that presence was something that made even the bravest warriors weep. It was disappointment. Profound, crushing disappointment. Humanity had hoped for better from the galaxy. They had wanted friendship, cooperation, mutual growth. Instead, they had received mockery and contempt. And now, like disappointed parents dealing with cruel children, they were going to teach a lesson. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted 17 minutes. When it ended, the entire Zephyrian fleet hung dead in space. Not destroyed, but neutralized. Every weapon disabled, every engine offline, every communication system silent. 10,000 ships reduced to floating tombs, kept alive only by emergency life support. Admiral Rodriguez appeared on every screen in the galaxy simultaneously. Behind him, Earth spun peacefully, untouched by the violence that had just occurred in its orbit. To all species watching, he said, his voice carrying to every corner of known space. This is what humanity is capable of when pushed to our limits. We chose to disable rather than destroy because despite everything we still believe in mercy. But make no mistake, we could have eliminated every ship, every life, every trace of the Zephyrian fleet from existence. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. For 1,000 years you've treated us as inferiors. You've laughed at our struggles, dismissed our achievements, and tried to cage us like animals. That ends now. Humanity is taking its rightful place in the galaxy, not as subjects to be mocked, but as equals to be respected. The image shifted to show Earth's true defensive fleet, not 300 ships, but 30,000. Each one impossible. Each one wrong according to everything the galaxy thought it knew about physics and reality. We're returning the Zephyrian fleet to their space, alive but helpless. They'll drift for exactly 1,000 years, 1 year for every year of mockery we endured. Their empire will survive, but weakened, humbled. Let this be a lesson to any who would threaten Earth or human colonies. Rodriguez's expression softened slightly, but to those who wish to engage with us as equals, to trade fairly, to share knowledge and grow together, Earth's hand is extended in friendship. We never wanted to be your enemies. We wanted to be your partners. That offer still stands. The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy in stunned silence. In the Galactic Parliament, representatives sat frozen in their seats. The ancient archives that many species had forgotten were being frantically accessed. And there it was, buried in the deepest records, mentions of the flame bearers, the chaos builders, the ones who learned through suffering. Humanity. Their ancestors hadn't isolated humans because they were weak. They had isolated them because they recognized what humans could become if pushed too far, a species that turned trauma into evolution, that used suffering as a catalyst for transformation, that could hold the entire universe in their minds without going mad. And now, through their mockery and cruelty, the galaxy had pushed humanity to become exactly what their ancestors had feared. The age of human mockery was over. The age of human ascendance had begun.